And we are back, this time coming to you live from my closet. Welcome, great to have you. If you are returning, I hope you've already subscribed. If you're a first-time visitor, welcome. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'm loving everybody who's interacting with these videos because it means everybody is hungry for a wealth of knowledge. And I think we can all come out of, the whole COVID situation better people, having learned a couple of things. So if you have learned a thing or two, or if you haven't as yet seen the episodes, please do check them out. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Today is even more knowledge, a field I personally am very interested in. Directing. Yes, we look into what is a director, the journey of becoming a director, some of the difficulties within the field. I thought a very important part was also to speak about representation within the field. We're seeing a lot more black directors, we're seeing a lot more female directors. We speak about the difference between directing commercials and directing films, and finally the current state of just the industry. And I think today's guest was the perfect person to have this conversation because he's got years that surpass his age under his belt. He's directed and executive produced some of the biggest films and shows in the country. Happiness is a 4-letter word. The Herd. Most recently, Gomora. Ladies and gentlemen, THABANG MOLEYA in the building. Yeah, so if you're interested in directing, you want to keep it locked to this episode. And remember, if you learned a thing or two, don't forget to press that subscribe button. Welcome to TV&R. This is TV&R. Welcome, THABANG MOLEYA. Hello. Thank you for making time. I know you're a very busy man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And I mean, in case you don't know, the point of this podcast is to just kind of give people insights into parts of the industry that people don't talk about or people don't even know exist. And you are director, executive producer extraordinaire. I mean, some of the biggest titles to come out of the country. Happiness is a 4-letter word. Josie H, The Lab, Gomora. What am I missing? There's so many. Yes. How did this all start for you? Because it seems like, people don't know, but I guess because of social media now, they're aware that you exist.
I mean, for me, I've always been a storyteller. I've always enjoyed the art of storytelling. I grew up in a household where Gogo was always telling us stories. And it was great. Like, I think for us, me and my siblings, it was such a joy to just sit around in a room and just listen to my grand talk about, like, make up stories, I think for me, that's really where my birth originated from in terms of storytelling. And I've just, like, growing up, I enjoyed taking pictures, black and white photography. I studied in the arts, so I went to National School of the Arts. I majored in fine arts, I majored in photography. I was curious about an image being able to tell so many words.
Yeah.
So I've always been like a storyteller to some kind of, my mom bought me a camera when I was really young, like a little VHS recording little camera. And I used to shoot, like the family would go down to Durban for holidays and I would shoot us packing, I'd shoot us on the road, I'd shoot us whenever we had pit stops at garages, I'd shoot our arrival. So even just something as simple as a family trip to Durban for me was like an opportunity to tell a story. So I've always been captivated by the narrative structure and storytelling, so it's always been a part of who I am, really.
It seems like your family was very supportive of the things that you liked. For example, going to NSA, for a lot of parents, they're like, no, you're not going there. What's the story there? Were they always, behind you? Did they understand what it was that you were trying to do? Did you even understand?
No, I really didn't. Look, I kind of, with the typical like math, science, like, I kind of was a very average student. I wouldn't do well, but I also wouldn't fail. I would just like make it,
In South Africa, it doesn't take much to make it. Isn't it like 40%?
But I think for me, it was very much like um, once once my parents saw that I was, oh, okay, cool, he's got other talents, he's gifted in drawing, he's gifted in storytelling, or like, I think my parents just had a feeling that I was just like a different child.
Yeah.
You know, my younger sister, she's a scientist, she's got her
Wow.
in genetics. My other sister, she's in performance and she lives in London. So like my family's like, the one side is full of scientists and doctors, and the other side is filled with artists. They were always able to kind of be like, okay, cool, this one like belongs in art. And once I got to NSA, I just flew, I just excelled. I was really in a space which embraced who I was and ultimately built me to who I am today.
Yeah. I mean, taking videos and taking pictures is good and well, but you don't necessarily know you want to be a director. Did you even know
Right.
such a title existed?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. You know, the thing about it is the first thing how it started for me was um, while going to NSA, I was doing a lot of TV work. I had started my TV career as an actor when I was about 12 on an SABC1 drama series called Giliboni and then Homeland. So I had an understanding of what set
Ah,
felt like. So by the time I got to high school and I managed to audition and become one of the KTV presenters, and I was in grade 8 at the time, it was really like, once I got into the studios and I was in front of camera again, and I was like, you know, it was like a world that I had known and I was familiar with, but a part of me was like, but I want to tell stories that I want to see, you know? So we kind of created a small group of friends, and we were like, okay, let's write, let's shoot stuff on weekends. And that's what we did. Like, we wrote ideas down, we wrote concepts down, we would shoot on weekends. During the week, we'd find an edit suite at Red Pepper, and that Red Pepper that let us edit. So by the time I left high school, I had good experience in front of camera. I had shot a few short films.
mm-hmm.
I remember 2 of the short films that we had shot, I wanted to have a premiere, like a screening. So I went to Rosebank Cinema, and I went to the Cinema Nouveau, and I said, hey, I've got 2 short films and I want to screen them here. And they were like, okay, sure. And I was like, what? So we had a whole premiere night. Like, we invited our family, we
What?
invited our friends. Yeah. And we were like, I think we were probably like 17 at the time. But it was just like, I think we were, or at least I feel like I was brave enough to take chances, and I was
Yeah.
brave enough to risks that a part of me was like, of course they're going to let us have a premiere in Rosebank of our 2 short films. And then I asked and they said yes, you
Yeah.
know.
Because you never
So
know
it was,
until you do ask, right? I mean, the worst that could happen is you get a
yeah,
no.
yeah, exactly. You know, so we're just like, you know, we're just like really being brave, you know, and really
Mm,
making like decisions without being scared, really, you
yeah.
know. And I think that's part of what really put me to where I am today. I just wasn't afraid of asking and taking chances, you know.
I think it's also why, you know, the work that you've done truly surpasses your age, because you
Right.
started so young and so brave. For those who don't know, what does a director actually do?
So what a director does is like, so you've got a script, right? You've got a script that's written down on a paper, and you read that script. And a director is pretty much the captain of how that script gets interpreted into what you see on screen. You know, so if the script says 2 strangers meet in a park and they don't know they're each other's soulmates, you know, so as a director, you need to find the right park. You need to, and also finding the right park is very important. It's not just about, you know, maybe you want to find a park that has a lake, or
Yeah.
maybe you want to find a park that's like, you know, also what time of the year do you want to shoot this park? Do you want to shoot it in autumn when the leaves are still like orange, or do you want to shoot it in spring? And all of those things really affect the end product of what you're going to get. You know, so you decide, okay, this is the park I want to shoot in. These are the characters, so you cast the actors that you want for that role. This is the wardrobe that you want them to be wearing, and then you decide, okay, maybe you want to put the lady on a bicycle and she has a flat tire. Maybe you want to put the guy and he's jogging, and that's how they're going to meet. He's going to stop and ask her if she needs help. So there's little things like that. You know, maybe the script has some elements which are written,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately, as a director, you're meant to unearth that script, and you're meant to, like, you know, I always say the script is the canvas, and as the director, you choose the colors of how you're going to do the painting.
Yeah.
You know, so I always find that, like, um, you see the script, you read the script, but once you've read it, you need to search deeper, and you need to look for the deeper meaning, the subtext of what the script is actually saying,
And
and how you.
it's a tricky job that you guys do, because I mean, in as much as you're doing all that you've just mentioned, you're also sort of overlooking all the other departments to make sure that no one is falling flat.
Yeah, I mean, that's also the role of a producer, really. Like, that's the relationship between a really strong director and a good producer. Your producer is meant to keep away any other kind of chaos that's happening, like background noise. You know, I call it the background noise.
Yeah.
So my producer always keeps the background noise in the back, so that I can focus on the script, and I can focus on my actors, and I can focus on getting the beat of the scene right, and things like that, you know. So I always find that, like, the relationship between a director and a producer is very important, because they, you know, they're ultimately there to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
What kind of a director would you say you are? Because, you know, there's some directors who are just making sure that the lighting's right, the camera angles are right, the focus is pulled. Are you the type who, you know, scrutinizes performance? There's some who also are actors, like you. You were an actor, which makes it a little bit harder, because you like, I would have done it like this.
Right. You know, the thing is, like, I've got a very strong technical eye, and I've got very creative ways of shooting things. So I find that a lot of the time, I can challenge my crew, and I can challenge my DOP to try and get very interesting and dynamic shots. So I know I'm very technically sound in that department, and I enjoy the challenge of trying to achieve something that might be technically challenging if it's suited for the scene. But I also know that I'm very strong as a performance director, and my relationship with the actors is very important in terms of their journey in the story, their journey in the series or the movie, and ultimately really challenging them to try out different things. You know, I have long and lengthy conversations with actors. A lot of those conversations happen before we get to set, which is also quite important for me, because I know I've given them enough information to work with before, while they're prepping for their scenes. But a lot of the conversations also happen on set as well, when maybe I had a certain idea about a scene, and maybe they've got a different direction, and we just kind of need to meet each other halfway. And maybe we'll shoot both options. Maybe we'll shoot an option which I always say is the actor's impulse. So it's always important to be like, okay, what is your impulse for the scene, you know? And I see that impulse and I feel it, and I go, cool. And then after that, I'm like, okay, let's try something a little different. And a lot of the time, the actors go, wow, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Or that kind of changed the mood and the tone of the scene, you know? So I enjoy playing around, but I also enjoy, growing up, I was a very technical director, but as I matured into my journey as a filmmaker, I started leaning towards being a strong performance director. And I think where I am right now is that both have merged.
Nice.
Ultimately, yeah.
What do you say when an actor says, my character wouldn't do that?
No, I mean, I've had a lot of those conversations. And then I ask them to remove themselves, you know, because I find that acting is very, it's such a beautiful and sensitive craft, you know. You're giving, like, an actor is giving of themselves to something, and it's a very delicate place to, you know, because you're actually being very vulnerable, and you're opening yourself up. But in opening yourself up, you need to remove yourself and remove any kind of feelings you have about yourself from that character.
Yeah.
So maybe sometimes, like, I want an actor to do something that they might find to themselves is embarrassing. They're like, but I'm like, are you saying that because you don't think the character would do that? Or are you saying that because you think that you'll look like a fool, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, but in this moment, this character is acting like a fool. And it's not about you. It's not a reflection on you. You're acting this part, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, for me, I'm very collaborative. I think my strength as a filmmaker or director is that I'm a very, very collaborative director. I love listening to people, to actors, to my crew, to suggestions. And for me, even though I know that as a director, I'm steering the ship in a certain direction, I know that the strength of where that ship ends up is my ability to be able to listen to other people and listen to their suggestions and what they think they can bring to the table.
A lot of the time, directing is a very male-dominated industry, and in some of my favorite work, I've worked with female directors. I feel like they feel more, they're more vulnerable. Right. I don't know. That's just my feeling around it. What are your thoughts? Is it easy for you as a male director to always bring your emotion and be present in every moment?
You know, it's a good question because like I'm a male director who did Happiness is a Four-Letter Word, which is like, you know, a very strong female-led story, which is also written by Cynthia Jelle, who's also like, you know, a female author, you know. So so for me, I even thought to myself, like, am I the right person to be making this movie, you know? And the second I was able to like not look at anything else but find the emotion, like the emotion behind the scene, and to be able to either like be like, okay, I kind of have an idea of what this might feel like, or I have an idea of, you know, or I have experienced this in some way, even though I was the male in the situation, but I know what this kind of conversation or what this kind of conflict brought to my relationships in the past, you know. So I was always able to draw from my experiences or from experiences of people that I know that are close to me, whether it be my family members or my friends, you know. I was raised by my grandmother. I lost my father at an early age. I was raised by my mom. Then I was raised by my two sisters. I mean, you know, I was raised around women, basically, you know. So I kind of feel like that part of my childhood and upbringing played a very instrumental role in my ability to have some sort of like emotional understanding of who I am, you know, in some cases, because I find that, you know, growing up, like, you know, boys are not meant to cry, boys are meant to be the strong ones, boys are, you know, so a lot of emotions from men, even in today's age, kind of like put away or don't talk about it, you know. And then I kind of grew up in a household where I'm the only man. It made things a little bit different, you know. So I think like just my understanding of saying, okay, cool, like this is the emotional beat of the scene allowed me to bring the touch that I did to Happiness is a Four-Letter Word.
Do you think that Happiness is a Four-Letter Word unlocked that for you? Like it wasn't there before and then you sort of were put in, I don't imagine you thought you'd be doing a rom-com. So it sort of unlocked that part of you that was always there, but you perhaps just didn't explore.
You know, I think it also came at a time in my life where I was in a personal space where I felt like I was ready to be in a relationship and I was ready to share love with someone or to experience love with someone. And I don't think if the movie came earlier as a project, I would have done what I did. I had to go through certain experiences in my life in order to be at an emotional place to be able to do what I did for that film, you know, or what it did for me. So it was very like, and I was also very, I did a lot of homework on that movie. Like I did a lot of research. I watched a bunch of movies, man. Like every weekend I was hiring movies on end and just watching and watching. And it was like great. Like I cried a lot. Have you seen a movie called The Fault in Our Stars?
No.
Oh my goodness. Like, wow.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out. The Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah. So I was watching a whole lot of movies, man, and I was just like doing so much research into romantic films, into how movies were shot, into why certain movies were successful more than other movies, and I'd spent a lot of time in pre-production before actually kicking off on the movie. So by the time we got onto set, like I had pretty much made up every decision in my mind technically on how this movie was going to be shot. I also made sure that in the teaming up of the project, I spoke to a DOP called Lance Giver, and Lance had shot Tsotsi, and Tsotsi had got the Oscar. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, I want a DOP who can understand black skin tones and who can light black skin. Mm-hmm. And I was very supported by my producers. I had Bongiwe Selani, Junaid Ahmed, and Helena Spring. I had three very strong producers who were very much like supportive in every decision that I was making, and also giving me advice as well.
And it worked out because it went on to be one of the biggest blockbusters in the country. In your research of what makes a movie successful or not successful, what was your finding?
My finding was relatability and honesty. You know, like you really need to be honest you need to be honest, and you need to be sincere with the stories that you're telling, the characters, the emotions, the scenes that you're depicting. I think honesty is an important thing. I think once you're honest with your movies and you're honest in how you tell your stories, then people can relate to that. You know, like I think people can't identify to something that feels too made up or like it's too pushed.
They can read between the BS.
Yeah, they can read between the BS. They can find that, okay, this isn't like, I can watch this to enjoy it maybe, or like I can watch to invest and be like, I'm invested in the outcome of this character's journey because this is an honest story. And that for me is the fiber of a successful movie, is its honesty.
And it's always harder with rom-coms because it's very easy for them to come across as slapstick. We're just trying to make you laugh like sort of lack that emotiveness. But then you got that right with Happiness is a Four Letter Word. And after that, we saw a spike in rom-coms in the country. It sort of seemed like people were going to the cinema to watch South African rom-coms. Do you think it's that sense of escapism that sent people to the cinema?
I think so. And I also think the timing of Happiness, it was just the right time. You know, it had been like for me, when I was referencing South African romantic movies, there wasn't a romantic film that I could reference and be like, okay, this is a story about a modern South Africa with progressive women who are leaders in business, who are making decisions for themselves, who are powerful, who are beautiful, who, you know, all of those positive things. And I was just like, there really wasn't that reference, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously, I think once people saw that, okay, cool, here's a formula and this can work, you know, people kind of took that theme and reinterpreted in different ways, but at least there was a reference point. There was a reference of saying, okay, we can tell these stories and we can depict these worlds, you know? And I think like, for me, it's like for whoever's doing a romantic drama or something, if we as filmmakers don't create work that becomes references for other filmmakers or references as history points in our lives, then like, what is art then? You know, art should be about depicting certain times within people's lives and history, and also whether it's fantasy or whatever, but also art has a responsibility to being honest of the time that it's in, you know.
Speaking of honest of the time that it's in, I'm really excited about the direction in which South African film and just TV series is going. The world feels like it's getting smaller and smaller. COVID making it even smaller and smaller. You know, our stuff is being exported to the world and the world is eating it up. What do you think the future of a South African film and television looks like? Like what's like the next project where you're just like, this is what I want to do?
So we have a lot of amazing stories. We have rich stories, we have beautiful stories. And I feel like where we're at right now is like, I mean, you looked at Black is King, right? Like you saw what they did on Black is King. Like
I actually haven't watched it.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I haven't seen it. I chose not to. I'm a huge Beyonce fan. So I'm holding back. I get anxiety. So I want the noise to like simmer down and then I'll watch.
So I think when I looked at Black is King, I thought like, okay, cool. Like we at a point right now. I looked at Black is King, I looked at Black Panther, and I was like, there's such a pride that's being embraced of like African heritage, right? And where ultimately people believe they come from and the origins of the African people and how African people were spread out throughout the world. So people are kind of going back and going, okay, I want to identify with something and I can't identify with like a flag. I need to identify with the heritage and the culture. That ultimately means a lot of people are looking at Africa to kind of say like, this is the heritage of Black people. So when I looked at Black is King and I looked at how Beyonce interpreted her interpretation of Lion King and some of those themes, it made me realize that like people are gonna or have already started looking in so many whether it's in movies or whether it's in music videos, people are looking at us to kind of be like, okay, what other stories does Africa have?
Mm.
You know, because it speaks to people's kind of sense of belonging. You know, I find that, you know, I watch a lot of American content. I look at what projects are successful, what formulas are working, and then I also look at, you know, I put that against like my understanding or my history in South Africa, and I say, okay, how can I take like the execution of how they do it and mix that in with like how we tell our stories and merge that to create like African content that can reach the world, you know.
Yeah.
There's a rise of like, you know, where I have conversations with Akin and the projects that he's working on in Nigeria.
Yes.
There's fellow filmmakers that are in my circle, whether it's Sibs, whether it's Malope, whether it's like close friends who constantly engaging and speaking to each other on different levels of like, you know, projects that we're working on, projects that, for me, I'm in love with book adaptations. So I've got the rights to a TVAndR book that I'm adapting into
Nice.
like an 8-part drama series. So I'm in love with South African authors and African authors and being able to take their stories and translate them into movies or TV series. But for me, it's like, growing up, a large part of me was always like, I always wanted to be in America because I was like, America, Hollywood, like I always wanted that. And a part of me wants it differently now. I don't
Yeah.
want it as a drive to be like, I want to live there. I want to say, I actually want to bring African stories
To the world.
to the world, you know?
Yeah. There's an exciting project that Jamal is working on. And I think I saw you tweeting that you went onto the sets, Blood Psalms. What were your thoughts?
It's amazing. I can't say much because like, it's amazing. I can't even. You know, when you like look at someone's concept, you're like, I wish I thought of that. You know, like, you know. So, but it's so great, man. Like, and what I really enjoy is that we're all telling different stories, right? Like, you're telling this kind of story, Dewa Homolope is telling this kind of story. I'm coming in with this kind of energy, and like everyone's just like pushing. Sib's an amazing young director based in Cape Town. Like, he's got an amazing mind, and everyone's just got like really great ideas, and they're all different and they're all exciting, you know. And for me, it's like, it's really empowering to see that. And for us, like, you know, besides seeing like Black people on in HOD positions, like for us as Siriti, as a company, like seeing Black female directors is also something that's very important for us, you know. So so we've got on Gomora at the moment, there's 3 directors and myself. So I sit on Gomora as like one of the executive producers with Bukrano. And I sit as a director as well. So I'm the lead director, and there's 3 other directors as well. And out of those 3, there's 2 very strong female directors. Nice. And, you know, right now the 3 directors are running it. So majority of what you see on Gomora right now is directed by Black female directors.
Love it.
You know?
Love to see it.
Yeah,
I was actually having a conversation with Losha, and she was telling me, Losha Cooper, and she was telling me how on the set of Lockdown, literally the whole crew's female. So the DOP is female, the focus puller is female, the director is female. And I thought, wow, you know, I can't imagine how amazing. The cast is all female, which is very progressive. Let's move to commercial directing, which is something that you also do. It's been an industry that is very much infiltrated by white people. There's very few Black directors on commercials. How's that struggle been? And are you seeing a progressive change there?
It was like breaking into commercials for me was a very long journey. But I also, you know, I tried to break into commercials about 7 years ago. 7 to 8 years ago was my first break. So I was probably like 29, 30, trying to get into ads. And I was very young at the time for someone who was going to be a commercial director. And I had, you know, I had a lot of drama series like under my belt. And it was also the year. So what had happened in terms of my directing career in long form is that Sukula and Partners got an Emmy nomination, and then we won best drama at the SAFTAs the following year.
Yeah.
And then I sat down and I said to myself, I was like, okay, like it doesn't get better than this, right? And I was like, what's next for me that I haven't done? And I was like, okay, the next 5-6 years, I'm going to focus on just being a commercials director. And it was very hard. It was very challenging because it still is to some degree, but not as much as it was 8 years ago. Very clingy, very closed off, and very hard to like get yourself in there. But at the time I was with Bomb Commercials and I had 2 relentless producers that were always pushing for me to get work. And then after some time, I finally landed my first gig. And once I did that, like the wheels and my momentum really picked up quickly, you know. But that was a really long time ago. And I also remember the feeling of being on a drama series and then walking onto a commercial set. And I was just like, whoa, this like feels like 2 different worlds completely. Like there's not much diversity. It's a lot of white males everywhere, you know. Even like makeup artists doing like, you know, white female makeup artists doing like black makeup. On the actors, you know. We didn't have like black makeup artists, female black makeup artists in commercials. They weren't. They were there, but you just weren't allowed to use them, you know. So it was very tough. It was very tough, and I kind of like that sense of belonging or feeling like, even as a director, like kind of feeling like, oh, I don't want to inconvenience people, but you're like, but I'm the director, you know.
Yes.
So it took a while to really like find my feet, even when I was in there, you know. It has changed a lot right now. It's also changed in the sense that advertising has a lot of, not a lot, but black agencies are on the rise. Like the Odd Number, Avatar, for example, those guys are really doing, the Odd Number, I think, was ranked number 2 agency in South Africa. So what that starts doing is that it's not just on the side of the production houses, it's also starting with the side of, you know, commercials. You have a client and you have an agency. So the agencies, the more like we see black agencies, the more those agencies will have clients coming to them. And, you know, so it's like
it's a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
You'll see literally all the departments start to transform, and it starts to look like a more balanced situation. I mean, I remember jumping onto commercial sets back in my commercial days, and I was like, where am I? I mean, even in the international scene, you know, if you shoot, a lot of the international stuff is in Cape Town. And again, the diversity there is close to none.
Yeah, sure. No, definitely. I mean, I was, so even now in terms of commercials, there's a lot of like black female directors that are doing exceptional work, you know. And they're represented across the board by top production companies that we sometimes pitch against as Siriti. And like, man, these ladies are doing such great work, to such a point that they're actually more busier and getting more work than like the guys that have been doing this for like 5 years, 10 years, you know, because you can feel, because they're very skilled, they can do the work, they're passionate about what they're doing, and they know what they're doing. They're really good, you know? So it's really great. I mean, we've created a small community amongst the black directors in the commercial space. Just
I saw that. I saw that. It's like almost like a little society that you guys have done. And I don't know if I read wrong, but it's directed towards infiltrating the commercials markets. And who can we speak a little bit about that? Who are the people in this group of yours?
There's a lot of us. I'll just like, because there's so many to talk about, I'm just gonna read the people in the group. But there's quite a lot of us, and we're represented by different production companies. So Ernest Ngosi, he's at Bomb. He was with Siriti. He left us. Khale, Kitu, Lebs, who's at Arcade. He owns Arcade. Lusanda, Malope, Zinduli, Zweli, Mzikumalo, Stefina, who's at Bomb as well. I said Lusanda, and I did say Khale.
Yeah, well, this is fantastic because it's a movement, you know, and I think the more together we are, the more progressive we become.
Yeah, sure. No, definitely. And, you know, I think in the group there's about, you know, there's 12 of us, and of the 12, there's 5 female directors, which
Nice.
is like, it's like 60-40 ratio, which is great. Like it's never been like that.
I mean, it could
And
be
that's
better, but
it can be
we
better.
needed to get it like 60-40 the other way.
Yeah. Look, some people just tap out and don't want to be in the groups anymore. But,
Yeah.
it's really great. It's really great.
We're gonna wrap it up, but for those young aspiring directors, what's the advice you have for them? How do you infiltrate this market? How do you become a director? Where do I begin?
Well, not the funny thing. The thing that, like, I always say is that you always have to surround yourself with people that are as passionate and as driven as you. We don't have to have much, but if there's 4 of us, the 4 of us can make a plan. Like, someone can get a camera, someone can know where to get an actor, we can all sit together and write the script. But the thing is, like, if one of us is flaky, then it affects the well-being of the team. So I always say, roll in a small pack, 3 to 4 people. You can multitask and do different roles and just really shoot content. Like, there's so many things you can do. You can start a YouTube channel. You can post on Instagram. There's so many outlets that you can put all your creative work. And the more you do that work, the better you're going to get. Whether you're doing skits, whether you're doing short films for 3 minutes, whether you're doing webisodes, like, which we live in a time where things don't always have to go to a broadcaster.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that your content can be put out, And then I always say that the more you do of that work, the better you're going to get. Then I always say that people always say work hard, and obviously that's a very important asset to have. But what people don't often speak about is the right attitude. And I always say that, like, you need to have the right attitude, because if I'm about to employ 2 people at Seriti, and someone's got the right attitude and someone has got more skill, but their attitude stinks, I'm going to take someone with the right attitude, because I know someone with the right attitude is going to work twice as hard to get the same skill as the person who's skilled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I always say you got to have the right attitude, and an attitude, like, seeps into different things. Attitude means treating people with respect. Attitude means being kind. Attitude means, like, respecting time, arriving on time, like, just being a good person, like, have the right attitude. Have an attitude where people want to be around you and want to work with you. And, like, everything, I believe, will fall into place.
Well, you're a great representation of all the things that you've just mentioned. You are a leader in your field. And it's amazing that young people can look at you and see themselves and see what's possible. Because I think a lot of the time we think things are not tangible, or unachievable because they're not tangible. But we can see you, you look like me. You don't look like me, but you know what I mean. So thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your arts, and thank you for your time.
I appreciate it. Yeah, smile. Let me take a photo.
To check that we don't look the same. Thanks so much.
I enjoyed it. And to all the kids out there who love this industry, keep pushing. Thank you.
Shoo! What a wealth of knowledge. I think it's so beautiful that we're able to, see, not touch, because we can't touch, but that someone with so much knowledge and so much experience is within arm's reach, and we're able to pick one another's brains and hopefully become better for it. So I hope you learned a thing or two from today's episode. If you did, please don't forget to press that subscribe button. We are available every 2 weeks on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and right here on YouTube. And if there's other fields that you perhaps like me to cover, do comment below. Yes, and let me know what it is. Radio is coming, and there's so many fields. There's some really, really excited. I love it. But yeah, that's it. That's an episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.